Welcome into 101 Sports, the only one for your original sports takes, commentary, analysis, and of course, predictions. In today's video, we're continuing with our Big Ten football prediction series by predicting every single team's record in 2025. Let's get into it. All right, before we get started with the video, if you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers before the start of the college football season, but I can't do it without your guys' help. So if you would subscribe, would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, today we're just going to go through every single Big Ten team, predict every game, sort of a rapid fire style. I'll try to provide commentary about the team for the year. And we're starting off with Purdue. I think you can win these first two games and 2-0 start. I think it gets rough from there, though. So Purdue, you lost all your best players from last season, pretty much. You bring in a new coach. But yeah, Will Help is going to be gone. Max Clare going to be gone. Dylan Thieneman. So this roster is very depleted. You're bringing in a new coach, Ryan Brown or Malachi Singleton, either one. I don't believe in a ton as the quarterback. Dog's barking. And either one, I don't believe in to be like the best quarterback. And I don't think you're winning a Big Ten game this season. I'm sorry. There's just there's really no talent. I think it's going to be a really rough year for Purdue. Next team that I think could be close to the bottom is the Maryland Terrapins, who start off 3-0 with a really easy non-conference. I don't know if Justin Martin or Malik Washington is going to be the starter. I would lean Malik Washington just because I think he has higher upside. But I also think this is they're 1 year away. Like you brought in a good recruiting class this year. You have one next year. After that, I could see his program, like in Malik Washington's year 2, take a jump. But for just this year, I think it's going to be one more rough year and then a bounce back after that. I don't think they're winning this game. I think their signature win of the season is going to be an upset win off a bye against Indiana. Indiana, this is like kind of iffy on picking because Indiana was so good at beating inferior competition last year. But I think Maryland's going to get one upset between playing Indiana and Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska, Washington. Like I think they're getting one of them, and it was between these two and then the Indiana one. I went with the Indiana one, and then I think you lose your last two, so Maryland finishes 4-8. Northwestern, I think, loses its opener to Tulane, who, even though they're losing Darian Mensah, still has some talent. Jake Retzlaff potentially could be the quarterback there. You beat Western Illinois, but for a lot of these big games, like the Oregon one for sure, the Penn State, you're just not going to have the talent. The one you could definitely get, though, is a bye week or a game after a bye week against UCLA. But UCLA also coming off a bye, and I'm going to say they just narrowly edge you out. I like the quarterback more. I like that being Nico over Preston Stone. And other than that, I think you struggle. You get your win over Purdue, but I don't see a ton of other wins coming, except for this one towards the end of the year. I'll talk more about it, why, when we do Minnesota, but I think Northwestern is going to pull this upset to get their second conference win and finish the season 4-8. Let's do Rutgers. So Rutgers, another Big Ten team scheduling virtually no one out of conference to start 3-0. I don't think you beat Iowa. I like Iowa's team this year a lot. The defense should be good, and I think the quarterback play will be better than previous years with Mark Gronkowski. I think you lose to Minnesota. Kali Kamanis has a bad game against his former team. And while this Rutgers team returns a lot, you're missing your best player in Kyle Monagai. I think it's how you say his name, like 1,200-yard rusher. And the schedule is just brutal. You drew Oregon, Illinois, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, Minnesota. So I think you're better than your 5-7 record will reflect. But overall, it's going to be a tough year for Rutgers when you don't make a bowl game. UCLA is a team that some people believe in as like a sneaky dark horse with Nico and think he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I think while he might have the talent to do that, there's just not a ton around him, and he hasn't had the time in the system. So especially early in the year, like against Utah, Kyle Whittingham, don't see that happening. But I do think you can beat UNLV and New Mexico. I already mentioned you beat Northwestern. Penn State, not going to happen. And then Michigan State on the road, I think is too tough while still recovering from like a game you got blown out probably by Penn State. You beat Maryland, lose to Indiana. This one, toughest game to pick because Nebraska off a bye, so Nebraska's coming somewhat across country. Right now, I'm going to go UCLA. We might swap this one and do Nebraska, but this last stretch is really brutal. I think you're definitely losing Ohio State, Washington, USC if you beat like Nebraska. I only think you're getting one of these four. It's not the Ohio State one, but one of the other three you could potentially get. So right now, if the UCLA Bruins 5-7, still missing out on a bowl game in Foster's second season. Michigan State in another year under Jonathan Smith, Aiden Childs taking another jump. Yet another team I'm starting 3-0. I think he beat Boston College in a close game in the non-conference game, but then lose to USC. Nebraska, I think, is going to be a lot better than you, or at least enough to win this game. Michigan State, if Aiden Childs takes the jump, maybe I could see him making a bowl game. And Nick Marsh is a good receiver, but the schedule's pretty tough. Like Nebraska and Indiana on the road are tough. Michigan and Minnesota, I think, are better than you. Penn State as well, Iowa. Like these are all teams that I think significantly better in terms of talent and readiness to win right now. So I have the Spartans as another 5-7 Big Ten team. Next up, we can do Wisconsin as I think the team that has the hardest schedule in the whole Big Ten. So outside of these first two games, Miami, Ohio, Middle Tennessee, nothing is really coming easy. Alabama, I have as a true national title contender. They're going to beat you. You beat Maryland, but then Michigan, not going to happen. Iowa, I'm hesitantly giving you the Iowa win right now. Very hesitantly. And then Ohio State and Oregon, there's just no way. Even off a bye, I like Washington, Indiana. I like Minnesota. I could give you this Illinois. Like 5 wins, that feels generous. I'm giving you a big win over Illinois and a pretty big one against Iowa as teams that could easily beat you. This schedule is absolutely brutal. And like 5-7 feels like a success almost with this schedule and what was for the talent Wisconsin has. Like this could easily be 4-8, maybe even 3-9. Rough season for the Badgers. A team that I think is a sleeper in the Big Ten is the Minnesota Golden Gophers. First, the non-conference is pretty easy. Buffalo Northwestern State clearly wins. Give time for new quarterback Drake Lindsay to develop early. And then even Cal. Cal has so many moving parts, missing so much from last year. Mendoza, Hunter, Jaden Ott, a bunch on the defense. Look for Taylor to have a big day on the ground. Then you get an early bye before playing Rutgers, where you get that win. Ohio State, sure, that's going to be a loss because Ohio State's the class of really the country right now, being the reigning national champions. But Purdue should be a win. A home game on a Friday against Nebraska feels like a win. You never beat Iowa, so you're not going to get that one. But Michigan State should be one you can get. And you lose to Oregon, and I have you slipping up for one like unexpected loss against Northwestern, but you beat Wisconsin. So another 8-4 season for the Golden Gophers feels like a success. And if you can pull off that Northwestern one, you could be looking at 9-3. And yeah, look, I have you losing all your big games to Ohio State, Oregon, and Iowa. If you pull off one like major upset, maybe you're a dark horse playoff team. The Iowa Hawkeyes always have a great defense, but when you're bringing in Mark Gronkowski at quarterback, the expectation is going to be that you improve offensively as well and be a sneaky contender in the Big Ten. I think you're losing the Iowa State game on the road, but typically you do win that game in Iowa State. So that's one I'm back and forth on. But the rest of the like Albany, UMass clearly wins. I think you beat Rutgers, and I think you beat Indiana, have a solid 4-1 start. Off the bye, like this is the one I think I'm gonna switch this. I think you're gonna beat Wisconsin. I think I like this Iowa team better than Wisconsin. Penn State, I don't think you're gonna beat. Same with Oregon. I think like there's a clear separate tier in the Big Ten between Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and maybe Michigan, where even like having home field against them, I don't see most teams pulling an upset. USC, I think, puts up too many points. At this point, you're 7-4. I could see 8-4 beating Nebraska. I could. I'm gonna lean Nebraska win at the end of the year though to go 7-5 for the Hawkeyes, which is not bad, but might be somewhat disappointing considering you're usually better than this with less hyped up offenses. So maybe the Nebraska one I should go the other way, but I like the Cornhuskers this year. Speaking of Nebraska, the Cornhuskers opened the season with Cincinnati, and I'm thinking a big year 2 jump from Dylan Raiola will lead the Huskers to big thing. Year 3 under Matt Rule, look for a 3-0 non-conference start before a loss to Michigan. You brought in good transfers in Elijah Pritchett, Naziah Hunter, and Dane Key, which will make the offense more explosive and enough to get you wins over Michigan State, Maryland. I gave you the Minnesota loss already, but I think you beat Northwestern. I think you beat USC, lose to UCLA, lose to Penn State, but beat Iowa, and are able to end the year 8-4, one of the best seasons Nebraska's had in a long time, and I think clearly shows the program trending in the right direction. And then with one more year of Dylan Raiola next year, maybe they could be playoff contenders. Last year, the Indiana Hoosiers were one of the most shocking teams in the country. They get off to another hot start, 3-0, and then a big game that'll be hyped up as having playoff ramifications between Indiana and Illinois. I think Indiana is better this year. I like Mendoza more than I like Altmaier. I like the receivers better. Hemby's a good running back, and you return good defensive players like Pons in the secondary. So yeah, I think you're gonna beat Illinois, lose to Iowa. Off the bye, you lose to Oregon, but Michigan State, UCLA, those are the kind of games you win. Maryland, I think you have sort of a look ahead spot to Penn State. You're on the road, trap game, you lose it, but you come back, you beat Wisconsin, you beat Purdue, you finish the year 8-4. Not good enough to make the playoff, but still a very good season by Indiana football standards and shows they can at least maintain a somewhat level of success. Illinois was one of the surprise teams in the Big Ten this year, but are they getting too overhyped? I think maybe a little bit. Sure, you have a ton of returning production, but this is a team last year that relied on a lot of close wins. You beat Purdue by 1 point, and you didn't beat a lot of good teams until the bowl game against South Carolina. I think on the road at Duke, Darian Mentz is the better quarterback. They have home field and a really solid team. I think you're losing that one. Same with going on the road against Indiana. I do think at home you can beat USC as like kind of a ground and pound game, fundamental and force a couple turnovers, that kind of game, not too high scoring. You beat Purdue, but the talent is not there to beat Ohio State even at home. Off a bye, I think on the road at Washington, that's a tough place to play, and I think that offense is going to be really explosive, led by Damon Williams. You then end the year 3-1, just losing the Wisconsin game, and you finish 7-5. So I am lower on Illinois than a lot of people. I think this team's getting a little bit overrated in the preseason. The USC Trojans need a big year, a bounce back year from Lincoln Riley in 2025. Will they be able to get it? I think Jaden Maeva is a good quarterback, and Malachi Lemon and Jacoby Lane make up one of the best wide receiver duos in the Big Ten. I think you get off to a hot 4-0 start before losing to Illinois. Off the bye, I'm going to say you get your signature win of the season defeating this Michigan team led by true freshman Bryce Underwood. But Notre Dame on the road is going to be too physical. And after a physical game against Michigan where he held in, back-to-back is too much to ask. And even though you get the bye, the stretch is just pretty hard going on to the road to Nebraska after. But then you get Northwestern, Iowa, you put up some points. You lose a shootout to Oregon, but beat your rival UCLA to finish the year 8-4, enough to give hope to the Trojan fan base. My dark horse team in the Big Ten this year is the Washington Huskies. I think Damon Williams is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten and is a dark horse Heisman contender. You play a pretty easy non-conference schedule before a huge home game against Ohio State, where I think you push them to the limits, assert yourselves on the national stage, but just fall short. I think Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston, Decker DeGraff make up good weapons, and another year under Jedd Fisch where he's showing he can elevate programs given time is going to make this Washington team dangerous. You beat Maryland, you beat Rutgers, lose to Michigan, but beat Illinois. Off the bye, you beat Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, and it sets up a huge clash with Oregon to end the season. You're sitting at 9-2. If you win it, you get in the playoffs. I do think you lose this one to just barely miss out. But yeah, I think Washington is a very sneaky playoff contender in 2025. Now we're left with just the Big Four. The Michigan Wolverines, a team that I think is going to, take some time to get up to full speed with Bryce Underwood, but the defense should be great right away. And look, the offense isn't going to be anything crazy, but Bryce Underwood's definitely an upgrade over whatever they had last year, Davis Warren, Alex Orji, and the run game should still be there, and the receivers are definitely better. You beat New Mexico, but I think it's too much to ask of a true freshman to go on the road, his second ever game starting into Oklahoma and beat a good team there. But I do think you can beat Central Michigan and Nebraska. Off the bye, I think you beat Wisconsin. You lose to UCLA, but right here is USC. I'm sorry. Right here is where I think you turn the corner and you roll from this point of the season, beating Washington, Michigan State, Purdue. And off this bye, you're peaking and you play another game with your rival, the Buckeyes. And for the fifth year in a row, the Michigan Wolverines defeat Ohio State, finish 10-2, looking like a playoff team and potentially a spot in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State's the reigning national champions, and they open up with a huge one at home against Texas, who I think is more prepared in week one, with Arch Manning being a more veteran presence than Julian Sayin, having more returners overall like Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill. Like, sure, Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, but outside of that, there's a lot missing, especially on the defensive front, where I expect Texas to have a good ground game. You beat Grambling, you beat Ohio, and pretty much you just roll from this point in the season. You beat Washington as your toughest competition. And then even off the bye week, Penn State thinks they have you this year, but they've thought it before. And once again, Ohio State will win that one. Can't trust James Franklin in that spot, but I can't trust Ryan Day against Michigan. The Ohio State Buckeyes finished 10-2 for a second year in a row. Moving on to the Oregon Ducks, who I'm really high on this year. I think Dante Moore by the end of the year will be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. The linebacker room looks great. Mateo Uyunglele could be the best pass rusher, and they brought in a great recruiting class. That being said, somewhat early in the season, Dante Moore on the road, young receiver core, still an O line that's finding its way, meshing together in a whiteout game. Not going to happen. But from there, I think you can beat everyone left on the schedule. The Washington and Iowa games will be tough, but I think after this bye week is when Oregon's going to be playing its best football and potentially looking like the best team in the country by the end of the year. And finally, the Penn State Nittany Lions play no one out of conference and will roll to an 11-1 season. We've said all their games. I think you lose the Ohio State one off a bye, you beat Oregon, and from there you win everything else. Now, looking at our finalized standings, we have a four-way tie between Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State, all at 8-1 in the conference. So we'll have to look into some tiebreakers because this doesn't do it for sure. Then we have Washington, USC 6-3, Iowa, Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, Illinois, all 5-4, and then 3-6 UCLA, 2-7 Rutgers, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Northwestern, a 1-8 Maryland, and an 0-9 Purdue. That's all I have for my Big Ten predictions. You can stay tuned. We're going to have the Big 12, the SEC, and then we'll go through all the conference champion winners, the playoff predictions. It's all coming. College football is right around the corner, so we're going to have all those predictions coming out for you. But like I said, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Until next time.